Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging headfirst into something really fascinating. We're looking at how ancient wisdom, these legendary figures, and some pretty surprising folklore all kind of smashed together.
Yeah, it's a great mix.
Get ready, because we're going to unpack some incredible tales. Things that stretch, well, far beyond what you might already know.
That's the plan.
So for this deep dive, our journey pulls insights directly from a classic text. It's part 3, chapter 10 of Sir James George Frazer's huge work, Folklore in the Old Testament.
A foundational text for this kind of study.
Exactly. And this chapter, it focuses right in on the legendary King Solomon and, of course, the equally legendary Queen of Sheba. But we're not just looking at the standard biblical accounts. Frazer helps us explore how later traditions and even folklore from around the globe really expand on and sometimes totally transform their famous meeting.
That's right. Our mission today really is to uncover how different cultures across time and geography have imagined wisdom, how they've tested it, how they've celebrated it. We'll offer you some, well, surprising facts, I think, and definitely some unexpected connections, and hopefully show how these ancient stories might still, resonate with our own ideas about intelligence and perception today.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Solomon. His wisdom was already a massive deal, attracting visitors from all over the place.
Oh, absolutely. Frazer really emphasizes that his fame for sagacity, it truly spread to the ends of the earth. You had kings, envoys, all traveling to Jerusalem just to learn from him.
Like a global knowledge summit, but, ancient style.
Pretty much.
And among all these people flocking to see him, probably the most famous visitor, the one everyone remembers, is the Queen of Sheba.
Mm-hmm.
And she wasn't just going to take someone else's word for it. No, she came in person from her home in southern Arabia. She wanted to directly question Solomon, hear his answers herself.
Yeah, she wanted to test the legend, basically. And what's fascinating is how the Bible describes her challenge in 1 Kings. The Hebrew word that often gets translated as hard questions, it should probably be understood more specifically as riddles.
Riddles, like actual puzzles.
Exactly. It's the same word used for Samson's famous riddle back in Judges. So that immediately sets a different tone, doesn't it? It's not just an intellectual chat. It's a classic test of wits, a riddle contest.
Wow, okay, that changes the whole dynamic. And later Jewish tradition, specifically from the Midrash on Proverbs, which kind of expands on these biblical texts, this actually gives us examples of these supposed riddles.
Yeah, the tradition fills in the gaps.
So you can almost picture the queen laying these down like a real challenge. Here's one. It's quite something. A woman said to her son, "Thy father is my father, and thy grandfather my husband. Thou art my son, and I am thy sister."
Whoa, that's intricate.
Right.
And Solomon's answer, according to the tradition, quick as anything,
Yeah.
it was the daughter of Lot who spake thus to her son.
Referring to that pretty complex story in Genesis, a sharp answer pulling directly from Scripture.
Definitely tests his knowledge of the texts. Then there's another one, more about the natural world.
Okay.
She asks, "What is this? It comes as dust from the earth, its food is dust, it is poured out like water, and it lights the house."
Dust, water, lights the house. What's that?
Solomon's reply, just one word, naphtha.
Naphtha. Like oil.
Yeah, basically an early form of crude oil used in lamps. So dust from the earth, flammable like water being poured out, used for light. It fits perfectly.
That's clever. And there were others too, right? There's something about land seeing the sun only once.
Right, the bed of the Red Sea when it parted. And another about something living that doesn't move, but moves when its head is cut off.
Which was?
A ship, a wooden ship in the sea, living wood, stationary until you cut its head, maybe meaning hoist the sail or cut the mooring.
Huh. Okay, those are interesting.
They are. And Frazer himself kind of wryly notes that, well, if these specific riddles are the basis of the legend, maybe Solomon's huge reputation for wisdom was, in his words, somewhat cheaply earned.
Ouch. So like maybe they weren't that hard?
Or maybe our definition of wisdom changes. It makes you wonder, what did constitute profound wisdom back then? Was quick wit valued just as highly as deep philosophy?
That's a really good question. It definitely makes you look at the wisest man title a bit differently. But okay, the queen didn't just stick to word puzzles, did she?
No, not at all. The sources Frazer collects show she shifted gears, moved on to these really ingenious practical tests. She wanted to probe his practical sagacity, see his wisdom in action.
Right, not just talk. So what did she do?
Well, for the first one, she apparently presented a group of young people, males and females of the same stature and garb, all dressed identically, and the challenge was simple: tell them apart.
Okay, that sounds tricky, like something out of a modern reality show. How did he solve it?
His solution was, well, quite clever for the time, reflecting contemporary ideas. He just signaled for some eunuchs to bring out nuts and roasted corn.
Nuts and corn, how does that help?
Well, according to the story, the males just grabbed them, barehanded, but the females, supposedly showing more delicacy or modesty, took them delicately, putting forth their gloved hands from beneath their garments.
Ah, so based on perceived manners or boldness?
Exactly. Solomon immediately pointed, those are the males, these the females. Simple observation of behavior.
Okay, pretty ingenious observation for the context, but she kept going.
Oh, yes. The next test was even more sensitive, distinguishing between circumcised and uncircumcised men in a group.
How on earth would he do that visually?
Again, a clever context-specific solution. He signaled the high priest, who then opened the Ark of the Covenant.
Whoa, bringing out the big guns.
Right, and the reaction was key. The circumcised men, out of deep reverence, bowed their bodies to half their height, and their faces supposedly shone with the radiance of the Shekinah, the divine presence.
Now the others.
The uncircumcised men, they fell prone upon their faces. A different reaction entirely, so Solomon could again confidently point them out. The queen was apparently very impressed.
I bet. Okay, one more practical test, right? The tree trunk.
Yes, the cedar log. She presented a sawn trunk, perfectly uniform, and asked him to identify the root end versus the branch end.
Yeah, that's not obvious once it's just a log.
Solomon's solution here was pure elegance. He just said, cast it into the water.
Into the water.
Yep. The root end, being naturally denser, sank lower in the water. The branch end floated higher on the surface.
Simple physics again.
Exactly. But demonstrating that knowledge instantly, that penetration, as the text calls it, really impressed the queen. She declared his wisdom exceeded even his fame and blessed his God. It was like the final proof she needed.
It's a great story. But, you know, these kinds of contests, these battles of wits, they weren't just a Solomon and Sheba thing, were they?
Not at all. Frazer points out this was a really common theme in ancient traditions all over the world. Intellectual duels were like a known way to establish status or test cleverness.
So Solomon had other challengers.
He did. The sources Frazer uses mention another contest, this time between Solomon and Hiram, the king of Tyre. You know, the powerful Phoenician city.
Right. How'd it go?
Well, initially, Solomon won. He posed a riddle Hiram couldn't solve and won a wager. Score 1 for Solomon.
Ah, but there's a twist.
There is, because then a Tyrian champion, a guy named Abdomen, steps up. And get this, he not only solves Solomon's supposedly baffling riddle, but then he propounded one of his own.
Uh-oh.
Oh, indeed. Because Solomon, the wisest man on earth, for all his wisdom, was unable to read Abdomen's riddle. He was stumped.
No way. King Solomon's stumped. That kind of flips the script.
It really does. It suggests limitations, maybe. That wisdom isn't absolute. There's always another perspective, another challenge.
And this pattern of wit contests, it appears elsewhere, too.
Absolutely. Frazer brings in examples from central Celebes, what's now Sulawesi in Indonesia.
Yeah.
Really fascinating parallels involving contests of wit between the rival Rajahs of Luwu and Mori.
Okay, tell us about those.
Well, in one story, the Rajah of Mori sends the Rajah of Luwu a bent iron staff, telling him to straighten it.
How would you even do that?
Luwu was clever. He just heated it in a furnace until it was red hot, then easily hammered it straight. Practical problem solving.
Nice. Did Luwu send something back?
He did. He took some sago, palm pith, baked it, and while it was still warm and pliable, bent it into a loop. Once it cooled, it was hard. He sent that to Mori and said, okay, you straighten this.
Ooh, that sounds much harder. Sago's starchy, right?
Exactly. Mori couldn't do it. Try to bend it dry, it snaps. Wet it, it dissolves into mush. Heat it, it just melts down. Luwu won that round, showing superior ingenuity.
Wow. So they kept testing each other.
Yeah, there were other tests too, like unthreading cotton versus unthreading bark cloth, where they ended up acknowledging each other as peers. But there's one more quick anecdote.
Go on.
Luwu visited Mori, and during a visit, a resin torch they were using started to gutter. Mori, just being polite and hospitable, reached out and snuffed the sputtering bit, something usually a slave would do.
Okay, just being a good host.
But Luwu immediately seized on it. He declared that by performing this menial task, Mori had shown himself to be inferior. And he actually demanded homage based on this tiny act of politeness.
Seriously. That's cunning. Maybe a bit unfair.
Extremely cunning. And Maury, perhaps out of surprise or maybe adherence to some code, actually conceded. It shows how wit could also mean exploiting social situations.
That really broadens the idea of these contests, which makes Frazer's comment about the Queen of Sheba even more pointed, doesn't it?
It really does. He speculates that if we had her version of the story, maybe from her court records, she might well have been able to hold her own against Solomon. Perhaps she even stumped him a few times.
But we only have the version that elevates Solomon. It really makes you think about whose stories survive and who gets remembered as wise.
Definitely. History is often written by the victors, or at least the ones whose narratives become dominant.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit, because there's another really famous tradition about the Queen's visit, one that Frazer also covers, which isn't about riddles or practical tests in the same way. It's the story of the crystal floor.
Ah, yes, the crystal floor. This one is widely known, especially from Islamic tradition.
So what's the story there?
Well, the Quranic version frames it as another test of the queen's discernment. Solomon had the floor of his court made of, or overlaid with, polished glass. Crystal clear glass.
Okay, why?
To see how she'd react. And the story goes, she was completely fooled. She mistook the glass for water and drew up her skirts to wade through it, revealing her legs.
She thought it was a pool.
Apparently so. A very convincing illusion.
Now, later Arab traditions kind of ran with this, didn't they?
Oh, they really embellished it. There were whispers, supposedly started by malicious demons or jinn, that the queen wasn't quite perfect. That she had hairy legs or even donkey's hooves instead of feet.
Donkey's hooves, okay, that's quite specific.
Right. So in these later tales, Solomon uses the crystal floor trick specifically to check out this rumor, to see if her legs were deformed when she lifted her skirts.
And were they?
Nope. He saw no deformity. But seeing her legs apparently impressed his too susceptible heart, as Frazer puts it, and, well, the story often ends with him adding her to his extensive harem.
Wow. That adds a whole different layer to their encounter. And isn't there a specific place in Jerusalem linked to this?
There is, remarkably. Even today, a spot near the Bab el-Asbat gate, which was apparently an old bathhouse, is pointed out as the very place where this crystal floor incident supposedly happened. History and legend layering up.
That's incredible, but here's where it gets even more intriguing, globally speaking. This exact same trick, the transparent floor mistaken for water, pops up somewhere else entirely, right?
It does, and this is a fantastic connection Frazer makes. It appears in the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata.
The Mahabharata, how does it show up there?
There's a character, King Duryodhana, visiting a palace built by demons or asuras, which is full of illusions. And just like the queen, he encounters a floor made of crystal, mistakes it for a pool of water, and tucks up his clothes to wade through.
No way. The same mistake.
The very same. And the humiliation continues. Later, he sees an actual pool, but this time paved with crystal, so it looks like solid ground. He strides onto it and falls right in.
Oh, poor guy.
It gets worse. He apparently also tries to walk through what looks like an open doorway, only to bump his head hard against a door made of sheer crystal. The palace was basically a funhouse of illusions.
That is uncanny. The crystal floor, the mistaken water. So the big question then is, did one story copy the other? The Quran and the Mahabharata.
That's the natural question, isn't it? But Frazer argues that direct borrowing is pretty unlikely.
Why is that?
Well, for one, Muhammad wouldn't have been reading Sanskrit epics, and the Mahabharata, at least in the forms we have it, predates the Quranic account significantly.
So if not direct copying, then what?
The more likely explanation, Frazer suggests, is either that both cultures independently came up with this rather clever idea, drawing from a universal wellspring of fancy, as he poetically puts it. Or perhaps there was popular folktale, a common story about such an illusion that circulated alike in the bazaars of India and the tents of Arabia, sort of floating motif that got attached to different legendary figures in different places.
Like a meme, but ancient.
Kind of, yeah. Some versions even mention details like artificial fish swimming under the crystal pavement to make the water illusion even more convincing. It just shows how these narrative ideas travel and adapt.
It really does. What an amazing journey through these different tales. So let's try and wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
We've really traveled quite a path today, haven't we? All stemming from that one chapter, part 3, chapter 10, in Frazer's folklore in the Old Testament. We went from the biblical accounts of Solomon and Sheba.
Right, through the Jewish traditions with their riddles, the practical tests of sagacity.
then into the wider world of wit contests, like with Hiram or the Rajahs in Celebes.
And finally landing on that fascinating crystal floor story with its echoes in both Arabic traditions and the Mahabharata.
Yeah, it's a rich tapestry.
It really is. And what strikes me as consistent through all these varied narratives Frazer gathered is this relentless exploration of wisdom, discernment, and, yeah, sometimes cunning.
True.
It highlights this enduring human fascination with these qualities. How do we test intelligence? What's the difference between real insight and just a clever trick? These stories constantly play with that line.
So thinking about all this for you, our listener, considering these diverse stories, the riddles, the clever practical solutions, the illusions like the crystal floor, the sharp exchanges in wit contests, what do you think is the ultimate test of wisdom? And maybe more pressingly, how might these ancient tales, with all their layers of truth, perception, cleverness, and even outright deception, how might they still resonate today? Especially when we're all trying to figure out what's real and trustworthy in our own very information-rich, sometimes deceptive world.
That's a great thought to leave people with. What does wisdom look like now, and how do we spot it?
Something to definitely ponder. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.